And off to the races we go. So on this web access page for today, I believe I changed the date, but I'll fix the date if it does need fixing after this. There's a small section called wrap deformers. Have you guys worked with any type of deformers through the animation pull down in Maya? Yeah? Okay. So it's in that same pull down. Not specifically the wrap deformer, right? It was something else. Okay. Like a squash and stretch kind of deformer? Okay. So this is kind of found in the same pull down. It reacts a little differently. Using the scene file provided, create a wrap deformer to animate the high resolution lips. Start by creating a low resolution warp object, then create the following blend shapes from the low res object. So I'm looking for 4 blend shapes. Are you guys familiar with blend shapes?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm looking for mouth open, mouth closed, mouth wide, and mouth narrow. Create a blend shape interface, then attach the base object to the high resolution lips. Creating the low resolution object is a one-step process that was covered in class tonight, which is tonight. Once you have your blend shape interface working, create a 2-axis slider and connect the 4 blend shapes to the slider. Are you guys familiar with creating an interface with NURBS curves?
Most of us are.
Okay, I'll go over it. When you're done, create and save a play blast of your lips going through their changes driven by the wrap deformer and the on-screen controls. Be sure to include all 4 blends individually, as well as a few positions that combine the blends. Turn in your assignment on the due date listed. Name your files accordingly. Yeah.
May I be excused?
Really? Yes. So the next part is, I'll stall a little bit, but the wrap deformers download is going to be right here. So I actually don't have Paul's syllabus on how to specifically do this project, but what I'm going to show you will result in the same end result. So I want to see everyone follow my example of working with wrap deformers. So I downloaded the MA file that is called wrapdeflips.ma. Are you guys familiar with creating project files and project folders? And you do that for everything that you do? Yeah, okay. So this one's going to be no different. I'll make a project folder for this. I'll call mine lips deform. You can call yours anything you want. Accept. So I've downloaded the MA file. I'll go to my documents, my Maya, my projects, and my lips deform, and my scenes folder. And I'll place my MA in the scenes folder. When I open up, so I hear clicking. Are you taking notes?
I was looking at the file.
Okay. So I either want you to take notes on paper or I want you to take notes through your notepad. The video will be up for everyone to be able to check out, and then toward the end of class I'll be able to walk around and help people out. Yeah.
Created
last week.
We already did
We thought it
this.
would be due soon, so we turned it in.
Sorry.
Wait, what?
We thought the assignment was due today, so
Ah.
we looked up how to do it online, and then
I was wondering why there were submissions early.
Because our assignments that we see on web access are usually have to be done the next week when we go over here. So
I couldn't tell if it was due this week or next week because it said it was a year late. So I just turned it in.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive that you guys did that because I didn't even go over it in class. So if you think an assignment is due next class and I didn't even talk about it, there is a very high likelihood that it's not due next class. So you went above and beyond to research and do stuff that, which I'll probably be going over today. Why do I have an error? Yeah.
can you review our project?
Yeah,
afterwards.
I'll check it out after. Because I don't know what you guys did. You might have to do some adjustments based on what I'm doing today. If not, I think one of them had one slider and only had one blend shape working, or maybe there were only two blend shapes working. Oh, we'll go over it. We'll go over it after this. We'll see where the discrepancy are and what I'm showing and what I'm seeing from you guys. I don't know what this is. That's not nice. It's missing a mouth. It's gonna yell at me every single time I make a selection. Really?
You could just duplicate it.
Hold on. Apparently this will be in the video. Yeah, it yells at you every single time? Really? Well, so Maya's gonna be yelling at us the whole entire night. At least it doesn't have a voice.
That'd be very annoying.
Okay. So, I've downloaded the lips. I put my MA file into the scenes folder. I've opened up my scene. I've opened up my file in Maya. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to name my geometry. If I know I'm going to be duplicating it multiple times, it's good to put an _01. So when I do start duplicating the geometry, that it just inherently starts naming things correctly. Oops. I'll duplicate my lips off to the side. If I know I'm going to be doing a process that is very destructive, like a deformer or like a blend shape or something that I know that is going to be altering the source geometry, I usually duplicate it off to the side. I'm going to save my scene right now, but I won't save over my original MA scene. Whew, I'm used to working on Windows, so the controls are a little different. So I duplicated my geometry, and I created a display layer, and I put my geometry in that display layer. And I'll hide my display layer, so I'm just working with this piece of geometry. From the front camera, I can see the lips. If I go to Mesh Tools, create polygon, I can start to create what essentially will be a low resolution cage for my high res geometry. And I'll hit enter. It does help to make sure that the geometry or the high res geometry is within the bounds of these lines and vertexes that I'm putting down. I need to cut a hole for the inside the mouth, so I can use the multi-cut tool. Looks like it's on multi-cut options. Use that tool. This one works a little differently than mine. And I'll hit enter to confirm it. And I'll move my vertexes a little closer to the high-res geometry. It also helps to have the vertices relatively in line with each other. You can delete the face in the middle. From there, I have this simple plane that follows the contour of the lips. If I go to mesh and triangulate, it will triangulate the mesh. For ease of viewing, you can go back to mesh and click on quadrangulate, and it'll keep some of the triangles, but at least you won't have that many lines to contend with. I'll pull my geometry to the front, and I'll freeze transformations, which will zero out my outliner. I'll duplicate special. I'm going to reset my options because it looks like there's number of copies are set to 12, so I want to make sure that is just by default. So in case you guys don't know, because I actually didn't know this till it was like my first or second year kind of doing Maya, but each one of these channels, it corresponds to either RGB or XYZ. So if I'm looking at my piece of geometry and I see the red handle, then it's the first channel. So it goes X, Y, Z, RGB. So I want to put -1 for R. And when I duplicate special, it'll duplicate it to the other side. I can select both meshes and I can combine them together. And then merge the vertices together. You can either use merge to center if I know I have the two vertices selected, or if I have the two selected vertices, then I can just hit merge. G to repeat my command. From here I'll do an extrusion. When I extrude, I'm sure you guys already know this, but when I extrude and I pull on the blue handle here, that means that my normals are facing the correct way. If I were to extrude and push the handle in the inverse direction, now my normals are inverted. So make sure when you do extrusions that you follow the correct direction on the handles. I'll go to my top camera and I'll reposition my geometry so that the back of the geometry sits in the back of the ellipse and the front vertices can come to the ends. If I select the middle vertices and adjust my fall off by holding B, then I can pull the vertices to the front. Since I've influenced the vertices in the back, I'll want to turn off B, select my vertices in the rear, and then just scale those back to being straight. And I'll put the vertices back at the back of the ellipse. Make sure to delete my history. Save my file. So have you guys, let's see if it does it. Have you guys had this problem before where you're clicking through geometry?
I just click on the edge.
So the fix for this, it's a bug. I think it's a bug in Maya. So it's a bug in Maya because they changed up their viewport. So this is what you have to do. This button up here is select camera. If I select it, I'm selecting the camera that I'm viewing through. Need more windows. Holy bajolies. Okay. If I go to my attribute editor, I have to make sure my far clip plane is lower, and I have to make sure my near clip plane is a little higher. So if I zoom all the way out, it's a pretty small scene, but at some point you start to not be able to see it. That is your far clip plane, and how far you can zoom in is your near clip plane. So my camera is starting to clip into the geometry, and I don't feel like I'm that close. So I'd readjust this to 0.5. So now when I select the geometry in front, it actually selects. The problem arises when the clipping distance between the two numbers is too severe. It's a bug. It's a horrible bug. So you just have to make sure that your near clip plane and your far clip plane distances are not crazy numbers. So I created this new piece of geometry, but I'd like to rename it. Lips, low. I'll call it lips underscore cage underscore geo. So I have my high-res mesh, and I have my low-res mesh. From there, if I duplicate it and bring it to the front, and I'll duplicate it once more and bring that to the front. This one I'll bring to the side. And this one I'll bring to the side too. So I'll be modifying this one. I always forget the order, but let's see if I got it right. If you select the lips mesh on the inside and you select the cage on the outside, you can go to deform, and there's all these different types of deformers that can be created. Some of them are reliant on either a NURB surface or a piece of geometry to be able to manipulate what it's attached to. So I want to use wrap deformer. If I did it correctly, then when I select my cage, the geometry that I'm influencing will turn pink. Now when I move my cage vertices, the high-res version starts to manipulate. Because I left my lips in the middle of my x-axis, I can go to my modeling toolkit, and I can turn on symmetry. When I go to my front camera and turn on X-ray, now I can reposition my lips. So one of the lips was mouth open. So I'll come in here and I'll readjust my vertices so that it manipulates the mesh underneath. I'm going to do a smiling mouth open. Is that a question? Or you just stretching?
I was going to ask a question. Did you want to save your geometry before you start messing around?
Yeah, so I duplicated it over here.
Oh.
Yeah, it's okay. If you wanted to, you could potentially pull up some reference, but I'll wing it. So now that I've created, I use this wrap deformer to essentially do a little bit of modifications to a simple piece of geometry and have it reflect to a high-res piece of geometry. From there, I can either do two things. I can either select my lips, duplicate them out, and now I have a piece of geometry that's been modified by the cage. The other option is to either delete history, and when you delete history, it breaks the connection to the high-res geo, and you could use that one. So if I wanted to, I could keep it still connected, modify the geometry into either the closed shape, wide shape, or narrow shape, or I can do the opposite, which I would suggest doing this, is just edit, delete all by type history, delete the cage on this piece, and then start working from a new one. I'll zero it out. Oh, my cage moved. I'll duplicate it, and I'll do the same process for the next three lips. So by the end, I'll have 4 different sets of high resolution lips. For the sake of this tutorial, I'll just do the one. So if I pull up my original lips, and you guys said you're familiar with blend shapes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if I select my lips and I select the lips that I want to deform, I want to add a blend shape. Do I? Did that not work? That's not right. Am I missing it? Isn't blend shape window in Windows animation editors?
Yeah, but I think the name changed, right?
Shape
Shape editor. It's shape editor.
Oh, that's what it is. No, that's not right. I should be able to select this. Oh, not edit blend shape. Create blend shape. There we go. Much better. Oh, but it goes to the position, huh? Yeah.
How would you pull up that window in my 2016? Would you be able to?
This one?
Yeah.
In 2016, it should be the same area. I don't know when they changed the name.
I think it's 2017 they changed the name,
So-
so it would still be like blend shape.
Yeah, 2016 would be blend shape editor. So when I did my blend shape, so one of the things is like when you start working in 3D, it's like everything's kind of set on your own Maya, and then when you start going to other people's Mayas or other computers, things are either default or set differently. So in my blend shape options, I switched it from world to local so that it wasn't translating my vertices into the world position. It's more or less translating it to on the local position. So now I have a mouth that smiles. I can move this blend shape anywhere I like, but I would like all 4 of your blend shapes in a new layer just so that it can be turned off and on. I'll go to curves and surfaces. I can create a single box and move it to the top. The problem with boxes that I don't really like is that they come in as pieces. So just for simplicity, we could just leave it as pieces. You could go in and with the EP curve tool and be able to make your own box that is a continuous shape, but for this exercise it's not exactly super important to have this be all continuous. I'm also going to create a NURBS curve and bring that to the top. And I'll scale my NURBS curve, and I'll select my square so that I start to make it look like a switch. I'm really impressed that you guys did this all by yourself. This is exactly what I was going to be showing tonight, and you guys were able to do it. So I now have essentially this switch that I made. I'll freeze transformations. My manipulator for the box and the manipulator for the NURBS curve are in the middle of each other. So if I hold X, I can have it snap to the grid. So for cleanliness, I'll snap these controllers to the grid, like so. From there, I'll name my first NURBS curve. Actually, make sure you say, or freeze transformations. I'll name my first NURBS curve to mouth underscore open underscore manip. You take that and also rename the next circles, which is close, wide, narrow. Oh yeah. Closed. Wide. Narrow. From there, I can select my curve, and I can select my translate Y, and I can then select set driven key. So I want my NURBS curve to drive the blend shape. So the driver is the controller. So I want to load the driver. And if I select my blend shape, I can hit load. Oh, maybe I can't. Which one is it? Huh?
Still one of them. One of them. Blend shape. The one that says blend shape.
Oh,
There we go.
oh, that's what it is. No? I was gonna say that doesn't seem right. It should be this one. Which one's on the right?
The translate X, translate Y, whichever one is affected. I think that's what we did before.
So the driver should be mouth open manip, and it should be translate Y, but the driven needs to populate with the with this. How come when I select it, it won't add driven? I don't want to add it.
Select the geometry and then.
Oh, do it that way. Oh my! Why you do this to me? There you go. Well,
No, you're gonna have to click on the blend shape.
oh my gosh, really?
It's right there, right? Outputs.
Huh?
Right there on outputs in the channel box. Outputs blend shape 1.
You have to select the purple one. It doesn't need to be in the channel.
Oh, is it this one that you select?
Blend shape.
That blend shape. You can click on that one.
That's a backwards way of doing it. Really? Oh my god. Really? Okay, well, I guess that's what you gotta do. You should be able to just select it in here. And then you have it selected, and then you should be able to load driven. Wait, did it just work right now? Did it seriously just work right now? Am I going crazy? No, okay. It's not. I don't know what's up. Okay, so if I select the blend shape, and if I go to outputs in the channel box, I can load the driven. And the blend shape 1, so you'll probably see blend shape 1, 2, 3, 4. If I select blend shape 1 and go to lips high geo, now I can key. So I'll go to my first controller. And because I have translate Y selected, and I had the lips high geo 03 selected, I have in my, let me close it too, in my shape, I have it at 0. So now I'll key it. See, there it goes keying. From there, I'll translate this down. I don't want it to be, I want it to be a round number. So I'll do 1.5. Your 1.5s may be different. It might be 2, it might be 3, it might be 1. But I like to round that off to the nearest tenth of a decimal place. I still have everything selected, and I'll key it again. Oh, just kidding. In the shape editor, I have to make sure that the blend is set to 1 because I've now changed this number to negative 1.5. And I'll key it. There you go. Now I want to put restrictions on this controller because I don't know if anyone here is an animator or knows an animator, but animators love to break stuff. So as a modeler, as a rigger, as a technical artist, your job is to make it unbreakable. So to be able to make it unbreakable, the animator should only be influencing in this direction. So if I select my translates, X, Z, all my rotates, all my scales, and right click on it, I can lock and hide selected. So now the animator can only manipulate this curve in this direction. But I still want to restrict them even more because they are really good at breaking things. So I don't want the animator to animate in the positive direction. I only want them to be able to control it in the negative. Yeah.
What did you click after you right clicked? After you selected everything and then right clicked?
Lock and hide selected.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So if I click on the manipulator and I go to my attribute editor and I can go to my mouth underscore open underscore manip, I can go to limit information, and here I can specify what type of limiting of information do I want to put on this via translate, rotate, or scale. Since I've locked out rotate and scale, the one that I want to focus on is translate. Because I'm translating in the Y direction, I want to limit the minimum that it can do and the max that it can do. So the minimum that it can do is 0. Can this be a negative? Let's see. Nope. So the minimum it can do is negative 1.5. The max it can do is 0, but its current state is 0. So now when I select this manipulator, I can't move it within these confines. And then I would do that 3 other times. And you guys are more than welcome to do more shapes, but the assignment only calls for just the 4 shapes. Yeah.
Our previous teacher in another
Mm.
and more precise. Because even like where I see the first switch, it looks like it's not touching the sides.
Mhm.
And the way he made the switches was that the circle was perfectly touching the edge like that,
Mhm.
and it would go up and down perfectly.
Mhm.
And he taught us a different way of how to make sure it doesn't get everywhere. But I guess the way you did it, when you just selected everything and hit them all, that was simple to
Do you think that would be beneficial if you showed that to the class? That method of
I think he
Paul
did the
has a
same
video on it.
oh, there's a video on
There's
this.
a video on it.
It's a previous lesson.
Okay.
How does it work?
Yeah. I mean, you can. It's totally up to you how extravagant or how non-extravagant you want your rig to be. The biggest takeaways that I want people to have is the ability to use deformers and the process of creating a blend shape and connecting it up to the system. So it sounds like maybe you guys know maybe 50 to 70% of what I said, right? So I expect all 4 blend shapes. There should not be 2. There should not be 3. There should not be 3.5.
I mean, wait 3
There should be fully 4.
I have all 4 like the wide, narrow, open, close, but I did put it all in 2 switches where I did the math. Where if it's in the center, it's at normal. When it goes high, it opens. When it goes all the way down, it closes. And when it's set back at
Okay, so that was the one I was getting confused because you had 4 switches, and I was like, why did you only do 2?
I guess that was the other 2 were not needed. I could just put those 2.
So if you take this knowledge, and you can do anything you want with it, the assignment at its core is 4 blend shapes, controllers. It doesn't have to be 4 controllers. You could do exactly what you're talking about, where
Delete
when
the
it
last
goes, yeah, if you had 2 and you scrubbed it up, it could be at each one of these is open, close, wide, narrow. So if you had the open one at the top and close at the bottom, and then a wide on the second one, it would be wide on the top and narrow on the bottom. That's perfectly fine. The biggest kind of takeaways are
the last 2 because I could just delete those 2. No, it was not needed. I could just center those 2 switches. So it gets to be a little bit more easier to see that open, close, wide.
Yeah, I think when I first watched the video and I just saw the 2, I didn't instantly see the 4 blend shapes working. So if you had 4 switches and you had 4 blend shapes, that's like the quickest read that you could do. Yeah.
I just remembered that on your other layer you have another pair of lips
Mhm.
that are invisible.
Yeah.
What was the purpose of making another layer with lips and lips?
So if I did something here, if I deleted something, if I did something to the point where I couldn't return, I always have my original piece of geometry staying in the layer.
That makes sense. Thank you.
So cleanliness is great. I love seeing stuff named. I love project files. Most of the problems that arise is because people don't use project files, but I think you guys are already aware of that whole process. So seeing layers named, seeing geometry named, seeing that kind of cleanliness is great. The main part of the assignment is blend shapes and the controllers and how to connect them all. Does anyone have any questions? Cool. All right, you guys are free to either stay here. You guys are free to work on this. I'll be here till 9:30. If you guys have any questions, I'll be able to help you out. It is pretty technical, so I would highly suggest you guys use this time wisely to either fix what you have or create a new. But you guys can start now. Yo.